opportunity.
Welcome to the In Chamber, the place where we focus on the issues and people that shape business success. I'm your host, Rebecca Patrick. I'm the Senior Vice President of Communications for the Indiana Chamber of Commerce. In Chamber is presented by Work and Learn Indiana. Joining us today is Indiana University President Dr. Pamela Whitten, who took the reins last summer. We will learn more about President Whitten and what she has in store for IU. So, where are you originally from? I was looking at your background, but couldn't quite ascertain if you're from the Midwest or what part of the country are you from?
We actually moved around a bit when I was a child. So I lived, I guess, the first third, if you will, in the Midwest, and the middle third, I lived in Tennessee. And then when I was in high school, my parents moved to New England. So I went to high school in New England, and then came back down at age 18 and went to school at Tulane. So moved around a bit.
Yeah, you really did get a nice variety throughout the country. That's good. You have a PhD, a master's in communications, and a bachelor's in management, I believe. Mm-hmm. That all seems like a really good foundation for the current post you're at IU. Mm-hmm. I want to know, did you always see yourself going into academia, or how did that path really come about for you?
So I went to Tulane, as you said, for an undergrad, a BS in management, and then I have a master's in communication. And then I actually stopped for a while and worked. So I worked professionally in Europe as director of corporate communications for a big bank in Europe that at the time ran banking and military installations, and then did communication work in healthcare for a while. And then at 30, I actually stopped and persuaded my husband, and then I had a 5-year-old and a baby, a second newborn at the time, to move to Kansas so I could get a PhD. And so I was really in my early 30s before I decided I wanted to make the break and move into academia. And so So no, it was not always in the plans. And of course, it ended up being just a wonderful career path and opportunity. And I will say, by doing that, by getting some degrees and then having some great experience, it added so much both to my decision and then the experience I had getting a PhD, just in terms of the insight that I had from that professional experience, and for just such a great appreciation for what I would be doing moving forward working in academia.
What was it about academia that really appealed to you, that really drew you in, that this is where I want to spend the bulk of my career?
I think it was the combination of things that you do when you work in academia. So of course, first and foremost, it's the chance, it's the opportunity to work with younger adults and not so young adults in graduate school as well, as students, on the instructional side, the opportunity both inside the classroom and outside the classroom for, the chance to not only teach, but also have the give and take of learning from students as well, and kind of seeing new things from their perspective and from their eyes. And then also on the other side of that is the opportunity to do scholarship and research. And so, my research is in a field called telemedicine. And so I was very interested in doing research that looked at how we could improve access and outcomes to healthcare. And so, as a faculty member at a research university, I got to do both of those things. I got to work with students, I got to do my research. And then, of course, the best part was when those two things actually overlapped.
Talk a little bit about sort of your leadership experience at higher education institutions. I know you were dean for a while at Michigan State, so you had a little bit of Big Ten tie in there. And then most recently, you were president at Kennesaw State University, which I believe is in Georgia. Tell me a little bit about your background with those two positions.
Well, I actually maybe would spread it out even beyond that, because, sometimes you're lucky in life, right? And so the leadership opportunities I've had in higher education, I think really well prepared me for all that is Indiana University. And so, that goes all the way back to my first faculty leadership appointment at the University of Kansas Medical School, where I directed telemedicine and was on faculty. And that was great experience in academic medicine, which is its own unique, type of higher ed experience. And then, of course, I went on to Michigan State and for many years was a college professor and eventually an associate dean, and then the dean as you referenced. And that was great experience in the Midwest and Big Ten and a large research institution. and then moved, of course, to Georgia, where I was the provost at the University of Georgia, which is the flagship institution for the state with a lot of kind of service and outreach to the state as well. And then eventually ended up as the president of Kennesaw State, which is a large university in metro Atlanta, about 42,000 students. But it gave me the perspective of the importance and the opportunity at urban universities as well. And so you've kind of packaged all those things together, and it's a nice kind of fulfillment of all those things that are IU.
You've touched on a little bit already your background in telemedicine. So I wanted to go ahead and jump there. How did you get into that field, and talk a little bit more about what are some of the efforts you've pursued there?
So when I moved to Kansas to pursue a PhD, I knew that I was interested in healthcare, and I was interested in technology. And this is in the early 90s. And so this is a true story. I literally went 30 miles up the street to the University of Kansas Medical School, and I started knocking on doors. And I said, "Hi, I'm Pam Whitten. I'm a PhD student. I'm interested in health and technology. Is there anything interesting going on here?" And after a couple of those meetings, I found this thing called telemedicine. And at the time, there were only about 4 programs in the US, and one was at the University of Kansas. And so I persuaded them to fund me one summer to do research around the state to understand why there was this amazing resource and so little utilization. And so I did that study, and I came back and presented it, and then eventually was actually invited to come then lead it and work in telemedicine and set the research and clinical agenda in Kansas through the University of Kansas Medical Center. And so that's how I got started in it. But over time, of course, became so much more engaged in so many other pieces of it. Did lots and lots of funded research to look at cost outcomes and health outcomes in various scenarios related to telemedicine, and did that for many years. Issues of access, policy issues on a national level, and then, of course, fast forward. And we hit a pandemic, and the joke, if you will, amongst those in the telemedicine world is it only took a pandemic for telemedicine to finally become ubiquitous, everywhere, which it has.
How much better is it really, I guess, the access to telemedicine, the acceptance of it now versus where we were 2 years ago, pre-pandemic?
It's always been about getting the best care that you can where you are, right? And so there have always been other challenges beyond just the technology. The technology works pretty wonderfully now. But so I remember years ago, I published a paper where I found that, and this might seem like obvious common sense now, but it was kind of considered a unique finding back when it happened, and that was that if you are seeing a primary care provider and you need a referral to a specialist for care, that if that primary care doc went to med school, for example, with, let's say it's a cardiologist, and that's who he or she was comfortable referring to, and that cardiologist used telemedicine, then as a patient, you were probably going to get referred to them and have the opportunity not to have to drive 6 or 8 hours for that consult. But if the person they went to med school with and was who they referred specialist visits to did not use telemedicine, then you weren't going to be afforded that opportunity. And that's where the referral was going to be, and you were going to make the drive. And so, I say that just to make the point that there's so much more to it, as there is just in healthcare and medicine in general, right? It's about relationships, and it's about, reimbursement issues and many, many other things other than just the actual straight clinical visit. And so many of those things have been worked through. Many of those issues were fast-tracked during the pandemic when it was, get your care this way or don't get it at all. And, so many providers who hadn't necessarily used this technology in the past quickly jumped on in recognition that they could better serve their patients. And, they want to do the best they can by their patients. And so that fast-tracked that.
So I guess the perception is now a lot of that's been worked through, the gaps that were inherent to maybe telemedicine, or like you said, some of that's just healthcare in general. But I guess right now, telemedicine's in a pretty good place.
It is. It's been in a pretty good place for a long time. There have been a lot of technological solutions, a lot of providers using it. I think it's fast tracked in the sense also that so many patients now, so many of us are asking, well, how about this as an option, right? I don't want to leave my home during a pandemic, or I don't have access in some way. we as patients are often the ones that are now requesting the service that way. And I think that's really helped to elevate it.
I know I've requested a few times myself, and it's, if you hurt your back, can't really get in the car or drive or something like that, perfect thing to do telemedicine. Early on, I believe you started July 1st in your position. You outlined 3 priorities for the university, I believe at that time or shortly thereafter: provide excellent student education, conduct meaningful research, and create activity that would enhance life for all Hoosiers. So I want to take a look at each one of those. In terms of the students, is there anything particular about the curriculum or how it's delivered that you're looking at to boost for students?
Yes, thank you. So, there are really 2 aspects related to students that we're focused on, and one, of course, is the more direct, which is student success, right? And so that would be aspects like retention or enhancing graduation rates. And so, so certainly as we move forward in the coming months and years, it'll be important to look at a curriculum and where there are opportunities to create flexibility for students so that they can move forward and graduate in a timely way, right? Or opportunities, for example, for our transfer students to perhaps accept more of their transfer credits to move them along in a timely way. And the second side of that is obviously the experience for students. And so sometimes that can be related directly to curriculum or formal degree. And sometimes that is about those things that you make available at an institution that create an experience for students. And at IU, we're starting to look at that because we want to make sure that we create those experiences that will separate an IU student from other students, right? That will make clear to prospective hires or graduate schools why you would want an IU student, because they're gonna have had those special experiences inside and outside the classroom that really fill them with all those values that are IU and different from other schools.
Indiana University is already very well known for its research and producing doctors and medical professionals. What goals do you have in this area?
So we're currently doing work across all of our campuses right now to really tighten up our understanding of what we're really good at and exceptional at, and perhaps need to even increase our investment in those areas. And then what are other areas that are going to be very important when moving forward for our communities and for society, for us to address those questions, and where there might be shortfalls or gaps, so that we can make decisions about, research themes or strategic research themes that we want to approach and invest in, because we recognize that we can't be all things to all people. And so we need to get focused on the research side. And so we're doing the preliminary work right now to make those decisions.
The chamber is particularly interested in the 3rd priority that you have, essentially being a key part of growing the state's economy. So please expand on that some. And it seems like it's a core task for you, the university work on, I know, to lift up the state. What does that engagement look like?
Well, we recognize, of course, that we have to prepare students thoughtfully, considering that, that the careers that our graduates have in 10 to 20 years might be very different than the jobs that they get right when they walk out of school as well. And so, we're preparing students not only for the job or the career right after they graduate, but we're preparing them to be able to pivot in their careers and how the world changes and the new opportunities that come are necessitated by that as well. And so that means that it's important that we prepare our students as the workforce for a number of things that our Indiana communities may need, both today and then as that evolves, of course, in the future as well. And so we think this is important because we think it will enhance the state of Indiana as a place really for future industry. And I mean all types of potential industries when I say that. And so, we know that if we have a well-qualified workforce, business will come to the state of Indiana. And to do that, we certainly want to continue to partner with businesses, and we want to continue to partner with state government to advance really the Hoosier economy as a whole. And we recognize that as the university's flagship university, is the largest university across the state of Indiana, we have key responsibility to really be in front of those issues and work with partners inside and outside the state to advance our economy.
Now, a quick word about our sponsor. Work and Learn Indiana is where work-based learning connections are made. It's free, it's easy, it's a win for both Indiana learners and employers. Its newly updated website hosts Indiana's largest statewide marketplace of work and learn opportunities that promotes talent and career development. You touched on a little bit earlier about looking at, of course, all the campuses, IU campuses. What's the biggest opportunity in running, such a large institution as the IU system, where I believe there are 9 campuses?
We have the Bloomington campus, we have the Indianapolis campus, we have 5 regional campuses, 2 sub-regional campuses, and then we have, of course, a number of campuses that are part of our medical school. So you can add it up in different ways, right? Whatever
you get various numbers, yes.
Whatever math that you want to apply. But it's really phenomenal, the opportunity that we have because of this footprint that we have throughout the state of Indiana. It really facilitates the responsibility that we have to serve the state of Indiana. And I mean that from the perspective of economic development. I mean that from the perspective of, cultural advancement and opportunity that you find on university campuses. And also, from the perspective of the role that we play as the educators of almost all aspects of the future healthcare workforce in the state, right? The biggest medical school in the country is at IU and spread out all over the state. We have nursing everywhere, multiple public health schools, social work, dentistry, really everything. And so, because of that footprint, it facilitates our ability to really advance that role. And that's something that we're looking forward in the future to really advancing, acknowledging that, what we do can have such an important impact on the state of Indiana. And so we're excited to figure out how we up our game there.
How is IU planning for, I guess, what's really called the coming enrollment cliff that's resulting from fewer people in the new generation and other factors like more high school graduates going into middle skills programs? How's IU looking to tackle that?
Well, obviously, we recognize that continuing to support students through financial aid is going to be very important in able to make an IU degree accessible. And so we recognize that. And so, we're doing a lot of work to plan for the future in terms of fundraising that will, frankly, be more directed and targeted to financial support for our students across IU and across all of our campuses as well. We also, recognize that there are other places and types of students that we should be serving in Indiana University. And so earlier this year, for example, we signed a new transfer agreement with Ivy Tech for the Bloomington campus that's going to allow students in several associate degree programs to actually transfer directly to the campus as juniors. And we know that's important, and we're excited about that partnership, certainly to support our students, but also to work with and support Ivy Tech as well.
And that's a big deal for those students that have taken the time and then want somewhere to go, want to go farther and have an opportunity. That's great. Mm-hmm. Affordability obviously is an issue really for every school every school has to deal with that. What is IU doing or planning to do going forward to sort of demonstrate its value proposition to students?
Well, we're really continuing our focus, for example, on student debt at IU that has seen nearly half of our undergraduate students finish with no debt at all. And we recognize how important that is, and we want to continue with that. We have advisors that are deeply committed and focused to getting our students through in 4 years. We think that's important. We know a lot of people talk about a 6-year metric, but we think it's important to strive for 4-year graduations. We're working to reduce the number of semesters that they end up paying for. And, we also provide at IU, we have something called an annual debt letter that is sent to students, and it's sent from the financial aid office. And it's another tool for students to make informed decisions about borrowing. And since that started, I think it was about 5 years ago that we put that into play, the student loan debt has actually decreased by 22% at IU. And so we certainly want to continue with that aggressive goal to decrease student loan debt. We also have financial wellness programs, and these reach students through individual appointments, and plus we have virtual and classroom presentations as well. But apart from the ongoing education and goals we have to diminish borrowing, to the extent that can happen, We're also continuing to support students at higher and higher levels. And so in the most recent fiscal year report, even with the rising spending, of course, that occurred because of the pandemic and the needed reductions in some areas that resulted from the pandemic, our student aid dollars actually increased at IU. And with that in mind, our campuses across the state, we really remain an incredibly affordable option for Hoosiers, and we're committed to making sure that Indiana students have access to a world-class education, while also keeping in mind that affordability must be top of mind moving forward.
A modern university president has pulled in a lot of directions, I imagine. I know spending times with students is still very much a priority. I think you even let your office know that you wanted to make sure you did that every week. Mm-hmm. What are some of the ways you are connecting with students?
Well, I always say, with all due respect to my colleagues and the faculty and staff, the best part of every day is the time of day you have to actually spend with students. And so I've spent a lot of time in my first 5 months really listening to students by meeting with them, frankly, and going to the spaces where they are, that they frequent. So, spaces like La Casa or the IU Health Center that I've visited and toured. I interact with them at events like the amazing dance marathon that is put on by our students. Obviously at football games and other sporting events, I meet and interact with students as well. I meet with them personally, leadership in various groups. They are certainly anxious and open to come speak about things. And of course, I do know that the secret sauce is often literally the secret sauce, right? If you feed students, they will come happily to many events. And I remember that as a student as well. I also, of course, recognize how they communicate today. So I attempt to reach out and communicate with them on Instagram, and also through a weekly blog that I put out on Tuesdays as well. And of course, what's great about IU students is, frankly, no matter what campus that I am on, when they see me, frankly, they just come up and talk to me. They just stop and come and say hi and introduce themselves and, tell me about what they're studying and what their aspirations are. And so it's wonderful to walk across any campus because I'll have the chance to spontaneously interact with so many students.
That's good. I know diversity, equity, inclusion efforts have moved to the forefront across the country. What is IU's model, and how important, especially among young people, is nurturing that sense of belonging?
I think it's vital and critical, and we recognize that at Indiana University and have a number of initiatives really to attempt to walk the walk in understanding how important this is. And so, we have work going on right now to look at where there are opportunities, for example, on the student side, to increase diversity across our campuses, but also to create programs to really facilitate a sense of belonging for all of our students and the many types of students that we have across campus as well. We also know that it's important for our students to come and learn from all different types of faculty as well. And so we actually launched an initiative just a few months ago. It's a $30 million initiative called the Presidential Faculty Hiring Initiative. And it seeks to go out and actually successfully recruit and retain non-represented faculty on all of our campuses in all of our disciplines and fields as well, because we know it's so important for students to have really the life-changing opportunity to experience so many different perspectives while they're learning and living at IU.
What has it meant to you and to IU to be its first female president?
Well, of course, personally, it means quite a bit because I am of an age where you didn't see women presidents of large public institutions. And so, when I graduated from college in the mid 80s, I must confess it would never have been on my radar that is something that women would do. And so it's personally gratifying to, in my own lifetime, have seen such an evolution. And we do see it. If you look in the Big Ten, for example, I believe there are 5 female presidents right now. Now, most of us have just started recently, but there are 5 female presidents, and that's very different in the past. But most importantly, of course, is what it means to Indiana University. And I think it's really quite telling about our university that there was such joy to have broken that bond, and that we now have a female that has been president. And I think it really speaks to the commitment of all of those that are part of Indiana University to see different types of people in leadership roles as well. And so I was really heartened when I came here and saw such enthusiasm about this new milestone.
I believe it was in the student newspaper in IDS that said you like to skydive. I was wondering if that's true, and if that adventurous streak may translate to any bold plans you may have for the university.
Well, I skydived in college. I have not been skydiving since. I'm married and raised 3 kids, and wanted them to let me back in the house. And so certainly true. Enjoyed it. But I do enjoy trying new things. And there are a number that we just won't talk about today that I won't confess to. But I think that the most important part of your question is about what we're going to do that's bold for the institution. And we're in a bit of a phase of pulling all of our leadership together. And so I'm working very aggressively to pull in a senior leadership team. About half of our cabinet is retiring or interim, just the natural kind of timetable of things. And so much will depend upon getting those strong leaders in place. And in the coming weeks, I think you'll be starting to see the announcements of some of those as they're being hired, as we've been doing the searches. But I think that we're all going to agree how pivotal and important it is going to be to step up our game for students. And one example I will provide for you is that one of the things that surprised me when I came here was the president's cabinet did not actually have a leadership position focused on students. So typically you'll see a vice president of student affairs or outcomes or success, and we did not have that here. And I think that's very important that you have that perspective that's literally in the middle of every decision being made on the campus. And so we have just launched a national search for our vice president of student success that will be coming to Indiana and joining the cabinet to make sure that we are bold and innovative as we think about the new things that we want to do for students and with students.
We're getting close. I guess the next month you'll be celebrating your half-year anniversary at IU. So reflect on the whirlwind of your time.
Well, first and foremost, the term Hoosier hospitality is real. The warmth of the reception everywhere and anywhere I go across Indiana is front and center, and I'm very grateful for that. I also recognize what a reflection it is upon just how much people love Indiana University in the state of Indiana. And, it's not lost on me the responsibility to make sure that we're doing those things that are just so pivotal and part of what we should be doing as the state's flagship and as Indiana University, both in terms of serving students, in terms of doing groundbreaking research, and of course in elevating the state as well. Upon a reflection, I will say that, before you come to Indiana, you think you understand and all that is IU, but it's really been my opportunity to travel the state. And I've been to every campus, most of them multiple times, and many places around the state as well. And you really have to do that to gain an appreciation for the significance of the footprint of Indiana University around the state. And I think that has been the part that has been most eye-opening for me in these past months, as I've really come to learn all that is the state of Indiana and IU. I will also tell you that my husband and I just love it here. I live 50% of the time in Bloomington and 50% of the time in Indianapolis. And frankly, much of that time is really around in other places in the state as well. And even though people tell you how great it is here and all the things to do and how wonderful people are, no one can really tell you until you experience that. We are Hoosiers by choice.
That's great to hear. I was going to ask you how you were enjoying the state, but sounds like you're already have gone out and made yourself very much at home, which is what we would want you to do. So that's great. You touched on a little bit, you talked about your family here and there, but what are your interests and passions away from the office?
Oh gosh. Well, I do have a family that's very close. So I have three adult children, two amazing son-in-laws, and two wild and crazy grandchildren now at this point. And so, obviously, a very important part of my life is making sure to build and find the time for us to be together. And I'll be frank with you. As cliche as it sounds, I'm an avid reader. I actually read a couple books a week typically, and always have something going, with me as well. And so that's frankly an important part of my day as well. It has been my thing since I was a little girl, finding a place to go hide and devour a book.
Is there anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to mention?
Well, I think that one thing that I will mention is how important I feel it is to partner with key folks around the state to move forward in important ways. And I want to say that I have been grateful to Purdue University, and I'm enjoying the relationship that I'm building with its president, Mitch Daniels. I think that in Indiana, we are so lucky to have two such amazing public universities, IU and Purdue, and I am ambitious for us to come out as a team to really serve the state and move forward with things that are important. And I've been very grateful that in response, he is also looks forward to that opportunity to partner as well.
Thank you, President Whitten, for joining us. A portion of this conversation appears in the current edition of Biz Voice magazine, which is our issue devoted to education and workforce development. We also spotlight Boone County. Check out all the stories at bizvoicemagazine.com. In Chamber is presented by Work and Learn Indiana. As always, thank you for listening.